Okay, so the topic for today is reflexive verbs. They indicate action done to oneself. Reflexive pronouns are not part of the verb, but they have an extra pronoun that's attached to the infinitive, the end of the infinitive, and placed before the verb when the verb is conjugated. Yeah. The reflexive pronouns are very similar to the direct object pronouns and indirect object pronouns that you've learned, like me gusta, te gusta, le gusta. But the third person pronouns are a little different. Me, te, se, nos, os, se. Oops. Direct object pronouns are me, te, lo, la, nos, os, los, las. Indirect object pronouns, me, te, le, nos, os, les. These are reflexive pronouns. There are just about 1 million pronouns in Spanish. Nope. There we go. How to conjugate a reflexive verb. And we did this last year in Spanish too, but it might have been in the spring during distance learning, so it might have gone over your head, and that's okay. That's why we're reviewing. First, remove the se from the infinitive. Put the corresponding reflexive pronoun for who you're talking about. Are you talking about yo, tú, él, nosotros, ellos? Put it before the conjugated verb, in front of the conjugated verb. Or in front of the infinitive. I guess we haven't conjugated it. Then we have to conjugate the verb to who you're talking about. And don't forget that reflexive verbs can be AR, ER, or IR verbs, so make sure you use the correct endings and the correct tense. Are you talking about the present tense, the preterite tense, the present progressive, I am doing? And don't forget any necessary stem changes or irregular changes. For example, the verb ponerse means to put on oneself, but poner has an irregular yo form. So if you wanted to say, I put on myself, I put my jacket on myself, you would have to use the irregular yo form, me pongo. Practicamos. Let's practice. On the back of that same page, it says in the present tense. Do you remember the present tense endings? I hope so. Hopefully it's like something that's kind of easy by Spanish 3. Did you learn a song? O, as, a, vamos, ahí san, otra vez. Do you remember that? Yes, no? Okay. Oh, as, vamos, ahí san, otra vez. And the ER endings are pretty similar, right? If you want to squish these onto your page, feel free. Hopefully they're familiar and it's coming back to you now, hopefully. If not, you might need to do a little extra review. ER verb endings, the vowel changes from A to E. IR verb endings are very similar to ER verb endings. O, es, e, except in the nosotros form and the vosotros form. Good? Is it coming back to you now, hopefully? Let's practice a little bit. To conjugate Yamarse in the present tense, the first step is take off the se at the end of the infinitive, move it to the front. We have to change it to match the person we're talking about. So instead of yo llamo, we would say me, te, se, nos, os, se. Me, yes, gracias, me llamo. And we have to conjugate, perdón. We have to conjugate the verb AR, the AR verb in the yo form of the present tense, me llamo. I call myself. To conjugate ponerse in the L form, we have to take the se, move it to the front, and we have to change the se. Me, te, se, nos, os, se. No, we just leave it as is, right? Because it's a third person conjugation we're talking about. the LA form. So we use say, and then we conjugate poner in the L form. It's an ER verb. The yo form is irregular, pongo, but the L form is regular. It follows the same pattern as all ER verbs. Vestirse in the eos form, they get dressed. They dress themselves. First, we move the say to the beginning. Which reflexive pronoun do we have to change it to for ellos? Me, te, say, nos, os, say. It's just say, right? We don't have to change it. It was a trick question. Vestirse is an E to I stem changing verb, to dress oneself. So we'll keep the V, the S, and the T in the stem. The V, the S, the T. The E in the stem changes to I when we conjugate the verb. And it's an IR verb, so we're using IR ending. Se visten means they dress themselves. Se visten. They get dressed. Probarse means to try on. Move that say. We have to change it to match do, so we'll use te. Probarse is an O-T-U-E stem changer. Perdón, I'm talking a lot today. So we'll keep the P, the R, and the B in the stem. The O changes to U-E. And probarse is an AR verb. So we're using AR endings. Te pruebas means you try on. ¿Está bien? Do you remember how to say we brush our teeth? To brush your teeth? It starts with a C. Ooh, close. Cepillarse. 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 It's spelled like this. Cepillarse. Which reflexive pronoun will we use to indicate we? Shout it if you know. Nos, gracias. And then we'll use cepillar. It's an AR verb. Cepillamos. Do you remember how to say teeth? See, it's related to the word dental, right? And in Spanish, we assume you're brushing your own teeth, and that reflexive pronoun nos indicates yes. In fact, we are brushing our own teeth. We use los dientes instead of nuestros dientes. It would sound weird to say nos cepillamos nuestros dientes. How about putting on makeup? Do you remember that one? It is in your notes too. You can keep. Everyone would think you're really smart. Starts with an M. Or you could use a phrase. Like to put on is ponerse, and then the word for makeup, if you remember that. We could use ponerse, maquillaje. The verb is related to that. To make oneself up. Maquillarse. If we're using the informal in Spain, y'all, which reflexive pronoun do we use? Me, te, se, nos, os, or se? Os, excelente. Os. Let's use this one. Maqui. It's an AR verb, so in the vosotros form, we'll use ice. Os maquilláis. How are you feeling about this? Thumbs up, thumbs down, so-so. Some so-sos, some downs, a few ups. Okay, so we're kind of a mixed bag. That's okay. We're going to keep practicing that. I know. So that's the present tense. Pues. The next on your page is the preterite tense. We're going to review the preterite tense next week. So we're going to save talking about reflexives in the preterite until a future day. We're going to skip down a little bit to the present progressive. Your notes are a little bit different here than what's on the screen. It says on your notes, in the following two compound tenses, the reflexive pronoun can go either before the conjugated verb or attached to the ando, yendo ending or infinitive. The present progressive is a form of estar plus a verb ending with ando, yendo, which is already written on your notes. Do you remember the forms of estar? There was a song, right? Did you learn a song? Estoy, estás, está. Estamos, estáis, están. Estoy, estás, está. Estamos, estáis, están. Estás, está. And we learned way back in Spanish 1 that estar is an irregular verb. The yo form ends with a Y. And then 4 of the forms have an accent mark on the A. The ing ending equivalents in Spanish are ando and yendo, which is already written on your paper. There we go. So for the present progressive, there are 2 possible options. We could move the say in front of the conjugated form of estar, or we can tack the say, the reflexive pronoun, onto the end of the ando, yendo ending. So if we wanted to say they are brushing their hair, they are doing their hair, peinarse, we take out the say, we conjugate peinar. Which form of estar will we use for ellas? Están, no? Están. Peinar is an AR verb, peinándose. Están peinando. And we can put the say here. Or we could attach it to the end. Come on, whiteboard. Si se puede. We could move the say to the end. Están peinándose. If we do that, we have to add an accent mark to peinando. The reason being, most words in Spanish, the verbal stress falls on the second to last syllable. Peinando. Estamos. What's another example? Prepararse. If a word in Spanish doesn't follow that rule, we need to add a written accent mark. Bueno, peinando, because we're adding another syllable, peinándose. And if we didn't have a written accent, it would sound like peinándose, which sounds funny. Peinándose. Bueno, divertirse, forma yo. Take off the say. Which reflexive pronoun will we use with yo?
Estoy.
We'll use estoy, sí. And which reflexive pronoun will we use? Me, excelente. Me estoy. Divertir is an IR verb. Fun fact, divertir is a weird one because it's an E to I stem changer in this ing ending. I'm not going to test you on this at any point soon, but you would guess that it would be divertiendo, but there's a spelling change. I'm not sure why. It's actually divertiendo. I'm not going to test you on that, but now you know. The more you know. Rainbow star. So we could say me estoy divirtiendo, or to a lot of native Spanish speakers, it sounds a little more natural to say estoy divirtiéndome with an accent mark on the E. Either one is correct, but native speakers tend to use the second one, estoy divirtiéndome. I'm not sure why. Last one, prepararse, forma two. Take a stab at it on your own. I've been talking at you for a long time. Try it out. Use these as an example. Write it both ways. I'll give you about 30 seconds, and then we'll check our work. Bien. Chequeamos. Either te estás preparando or It could be estás preparándote. How did it go? Thumbs up, thumbs down, más o menos. Did you get it? Did you not? Did you get one of them at least? Yeah. A ver, la próxima. We'll spend a little more time on the present progressive in the next few weeks. So if you're feeling like, whoa, this is going so fast, I don't remember, take a breath. It'll be okay, and we will continue to review it. Next, we'll talk about the immediate future. And on your paper, it looks a little bit different. On your paper, it says immediate future, going to do something. You need a form of ir plus the word a plus an infinitive. Do you remember the forms of ir? They all start with a V. Shout them if you know them. Voy, vas, va, vamos, vais, van. No accent mark on vais. I think on your paper we don't have vestirse, to. Instead we have quemarse, to. Quemarse means to burn oneself. So if we conjugate it in the immediate future, I know. On Smartboard, you can do this. If we conjugate it in the immediate future, it would mean you are going to burn yourself. Which reflexive pronoun will we use? Me, te, se, nos, o, se? Te. And then we need a form of ir. Voy, vas, va, vamos, vais, van. Vas. We need the word a. And then we need the infinitive, quemar. Te vas a quemar. You're going to burn yourself. Or we can move the te to the end of the infinitive and tack it on right there. If we do this with the infinitive, if we tack a reflexive pronoun onto the infinitive, we don't need to add a written accent mark. In Spanish, words that end with the letter R, the natural verbal stress on that word falls on the last syllable. So all infinitive verbs, the verbal stress, the punch, the heavy syllable, is on that last syllable. For example, vestir, quemar, casar. The verbal stress, the heavy syllable, is that last one that ends with an R. So we don't need it to add a written accent mark because the accent, the verbal stress is already on that AR at the end. Vas a quemarte. And then when you add the te, it doesn't end with an R anymore. And it's the verbal stress is still on the second to last syllable, which is more than you probably need to know, and I won't test you on that. I'm sorry for boring you. I think on your paper it says casarse nosotros, doesn't it? Which reflexive pronoun will we use to indicate nosotros? Nos. And which form of ir will we use to say we are going to get married? Vamos. Casar. Is this good enough? No, what am I missing? Ah, exactamente. Nos vamos a casar. And I could do it a second way. Do you remember the second way I could do this? Swing the nos to the end. Vamos a casarnos. To a native Spanish speaker, it will probably sound a little more natural to say the reflexive pronoun at the end. Vamos a casarnos. Vas a quemarte. But it's fine to put it in the beginning. It's just maybe sounds a little more awkward when you're speaking. Whew, how are you feeling about these reflexive verbs? Scale of 1 to 5. Cinco, I think I get it. I could teach this to somebody else. I really understand this pretty well. I remember learning this in the spring, and it's good. Uno, I'm totally confused right now. I might start crying at any moment. You don't have to show everyone way up here. Just show me right in front of your own body. You can kind of hide it and block it with your fingers. I see a 2.5, a 4, a 3, some 3s, a 4. Okay, so we're kind of a mixed bag. We'll keep practicing. Don't worry. If you're feeling overwhelmed and confused, we'll keep going over it and recycling it and learning it different ways, and it'll get easier over time. Bueno. Vamos a ver. That's not what I wanted to do. Next on our list, repaso de adverbios de frecuencia. On the next page, we have some adverbs of frequency. Take a few minutes, maybe just before lunch,